Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here is your host, Dave Woodward.
Hey everybody, welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio. I'm your host, Dave Woodward. I have the honor today, and it truly is an honor of having Brian Kurtz here with us. Brian, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Dave. You know, being on Russell, Brunson, and your podcast is actually pretty cool for me too, because and I'm not just saying this because you invited me, so I'm going to tell you that when I get invited to a podcast like this with one of the true you guys are true heroes in the internet marketing world right now, and so I consider that a privilege. And I think I said to you in our warm up, I said that, having 35 years experience in direct marketing, what does it really mean? It means that I have a golden ticket to get into rooms where normally if people didn't think I knew anything, I couldn't get into the room. Once I get into the room, they realize I might be the dumbest guy in the room on that particular technology, but then I bring my knowledge from the 35 years, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And I think there's a real melding of all of that. And I know Russell's a student of great direct marketers as you are, and that means the world to me as well, because I'm just another student, teaching as much as I can, but I'm a student.
Oh, we're super excited. I personally am. It's fun for me. I've seen your stuff literally over the last decade or so that I've been involved in direct response marketing. Had the opportunity of meeting you at Joe Polish's Genius Network. I know you had dinner with Russell there last October. And for me, it was just such an honor. Brad Costanza's the one who actually kind of connected us. Huge props out to Brad. He's got a great podcast, Bacon Wrap Business. But
right.
Again, for me, as far as working with you on this, I'm just super excited because I don't think people understand the power that you bring. You kind of talked about your golden ticket. For me, that golden ticket is something people need to understand how they can get their own. And it's how they have a lot of experience. Because we've got people who literally have 10, 20, 30 years of experience in different niches. But they kind of mentioned, like you said, gosh, I feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room. Again, for people who don't know you guys have to understand the honor that you have of hearing Brian here with us. I mean, this is a guy who literally has built tens of millions of people on not email lists, on lists of subscribers for newsletters and books and all these kinds of things. Old school way, I mean the hard way, building this by building lists and doing newsletters and stuff through direct mail. And so Brian's skill set here is, I'm really excited just to hopefully you guys can understand the passion that he brings, his excitement for this, because he has been a student. And I know it's one of the things we talk about all the time as far as the importance of being a student of other people. Brian's been a massive student. And in fact, we're going to talk later about a book he's put together as far as exactly being a student of some of the 6 best direct marketers of all time. But before we get into that, let's kind of talk more about your experience as far as building a list, because I know for a lot of people it's how do I build a list, and we talk about opt-in funnels and all that kind of stuff, but from your experience, how does a person really build a list, and more importantly than that, how do you connect with the people who are on your list?
It's funny. I wrote a blog called How Paying Postage Made Me a Better Marketer, and what I meant by that is that, and it wasn't because I wanted to brag about the fact that I paid postage, but there is a badge of honor that you wear when you know that how much it's costing you to send out every piece of mail that we did. And I remember there was an urban legend going around the internet many years ago about how they were going to start charging postage for email.
Right.
And I was like, cool. That's going to weed out, because that's going to weed out all the imposters who have such a low barrier to entry into the online world. Now, I didn't say cool like I wanted to pay more money, so I think it worked out well that we didn't have to pay postage for email. But I do think that it kind of brings up the point that there are so many different ways to build a list. And for me, as someone who grew up in the offline world, in direct mail, where it was super expensive, where you really couldn't afford to send anything out if it wasn't selling something. And I kind of learned as I got into the online world that I was a kid in a candy store. I was able to connect with people at a much lower cost. I was able to create relationships at a much lower cost. I mean, look at Product Launch Formula. Look at what, ClickFunnels does. the idea that you have the opportunity to create this relationship at a whole different level before you start selling crap to them. And so I think that, to me, that is exciting. I used to always say that, in my world, everything had to be kind of a revenue event, in
Right.
direct. And then I think online, a lot of people still, but a lot of people online, everything still needs to be, in their minds, a revenue event. But I think everything needs to be a relationship event. And so the idea that you can use content to build the relationship, that you can build your list organically. I mean, I have a list of it's funny, at Boardroom, we had a list of 9 million names offline. Now I've got this email list of 6,000 people, and I'm like as proud of that as I am of the 9 million. And in a way, we built it. I built the 6,000 organically. I mean, from podcasts like this, I'd be on a podcast, anybody who had the willingness to listen to me for an hour and they went to my opt-in page, man, that's a person I want in my tribe, right?
Absolutely.
But then it's what you do after you get them on your list. And the same thing was true offline. And that is, it's that ongoing relationship where we're not just pounding them with messages that are irrelevant, which everybody here knows. That you have to be, you have to be relevant, you have to be cordial, you have to be polite, and you have to actually give them preferences as to how they want to be talked to, whether it's online, offline, whether it's, through, shorter emails versus longer, whether it's once a week versus 3 times a week. And you can do all of that now in a much better way than we could in direct mail. And the thing that I found with the idea of list segmentation, which is probably one of the most important concepts anybody can understand. And when we did it in direct mail, it was all done through statistical modeling. Like we would take, millions of names, we would mail a cross-section of those names, we'd get responses back, and, it would take a while to get those responses, and we would actually analyze the responses, actually lose money on that mailing. But then by seeing who responded, we could actually look at the characteristics of the people that responded and go back out to the bigger database and then decide who to select on the database. Does that sound familiar to anybody who advertises on Facebook? It's the same thing. It's like, let's find out what their likes are. Let's find out what they're about. And so the people who think that Facebook invented, how we do profiling and modeling of an audience, it's okay. I mean, now I sound like grandpa, I know, but it's not like I mean that these techniques are just so critical, because why would you want to send messages to people who are not interested in what you have to say? So the segmenting of the lists in direct mail back when, of offline lists, you see the same thing going on today in terms of the segmentation on Facebook. And I see it even in my little 6,000 name list. I mean, how do I segment that little 6,000 name list? I'm constantly communicating with them. And if I ask a question or I survey them, I find out what level of sophistication of direct marketing those 6,000 people know. And then I find out which ones are going to be the best candidates to join my $20,000 mastermind, and which people are the best candidates to buy a $95 book, and which are the best candidates to just keep reading my blog and be my friend, and they'll never buy anything from me. And so those concepts, I don't want to be too flippant about it. And again, I feel like I'm talking to an audience that if they follow you and Russell, they understand all of this, as well as I understand it. But I want them to understand that, the privilege of being able to go out to an audience so quickly and so often is that it's a privilege. And so I think that what email did for me and the internet did for me was really give me an incredible appreciation of the things that I wasn't able to do in direct mail for list building, and that I take it really seriously, and I'm really excited about the possibilities. And, the people who segment their list best are the people who are always the best marketers. And I'll just add one other quick thing. I've been using this a lot in other podcasts, but it's such an important thing, and it keeps coming up with my clients as well, is that I realized that a concept in direct marketing back when was what they called the 40-40-20 rule. And what the 40-40-20 rule says is that the success of any direct marketing campaign depends 40% on the list, 40% on the offer, and 20% on the creative or the copy. Now, I'm not saying it's not 42, 38,
sure.
Whatever. But let's just, for argument's sake, let's say it's close to accurate. But what that tells you, it tells you a lot about what you need to know about direct marketing. And so, first of all, it doesn't tell you that the creative and the messaging is less important because it's the 20. That doesn't say that. But it does say that if you have the best creative, the best sales letter, the best video sales letter, the best messaging, and it goes to the wrong list with the wrong offer, you have zero chance of a response rate. However, go the other way. Have mediocre creative, like half-ass shit that you're sending out, right? And you send it to the perfectly targeted list for what you're selling, and the offer is very attractive, you will make money and you will make sales. Now, are you in business for the long haul that way? Probably not, because the creative is how you're going to romance the customer long term. It's how you're going to get people to rebuy, people to move into your funnel and through your funnel, and upsell and cross-sell and ascension programs and all of that. However, if you look at that, it's so interesting because I think that was a direct mail rule of thumb. I think it's a rule of thumb for any medium, and I see it online all the time. Creative is something that people don't pay as much attention to because they have a kick-ass list from an affiliate and they have an offer that's just irresistible. It's free and you get these bonuses and it's just an incredible offer. So you got the right audience, the right offer. I'll just throw a flashing red box with an arrow and it's going to be good enough on the creative. And you will make money. And that's been I'll call it the spoils of the internet. And so, what I'm here to say is put all of that together and now you end up with world-class direct marketing if you can put all those three things together. So coming full circle, because you did ask about lists, I wanted to use that as an example because I really do believe that of those three things, the list is the most important. And I did come out of the list business in direct mail. I sold lists for a while. I understand lists and list segmentation and database, but I also have worked with the best copywriters of all time. So I understand how creative and how it relates to lists. And again, another beauty of online, which kid in a candy store, is that now how quickly you can change your creative to different list segments. And in direct mail, that was always a lot harder. You had different zip code strings, and to have two different control packages or two different creatives to two different list groups was expensive.
Yeah.
Now it's so cheap, and it just amazes me when we go back to who's not doing creative at the highest level. It's that you have so many online marketers who have one message to their entire list all the time. And I think that's a huge mistake. Your multi-buyers are different than your single buyers, which are different than your prospects, which are different than your suspects, which are different than your cold email, which are different than your affiliates. They're all different, and they all deserve different messaging. So if you can get that messaging right to the list segments with the appropriate offer, and not everybody gets an offer to buy something either, remember. Some people just get an offer to opt in, as you guys know. So I guess the overview here, it was a long answer to a short question, but I'm a kid in a candy store using the principles that I learned in direct mail and applying them on the internet, which is a lot cheaper. It's a lot more efficient. You get quicker feedback. But of course, you can abuse your privilege if you beat the crap out of people online.
Gosh, I hope people understood all that you just went through because, again, it's just old hat for you, just kind of rattling off. I mean, there's a huge, just even the very last kind of paragraph you're talking about as far as how do you identify what's a prospect, what's a suspect, what's an affiliate. I mean, all those names, they have meaning. And especially when you're doing list segmentation, whether or not people understand it, the real key when it comes to list segmentation is application.
Yes.
And a lot of people just don't. Like, oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, I'll do that later. And I think we kind of, online, we kind of gotten spoiled thinking, oh, I can do that later because it doesn't cost me anything. You have to understand there's a cost. There's an opportunity cost every single time you send an email, every single time.
Absolutely.
And it's real important. I hope that as people are listening to this podcast, you understand what Brian's teaching you here. I mean, this is a guy who's had to put money out of his pocket to acquire that list. And so that segmentation is super critical. It's just as critical as it was for Brian as it is for anybody who's listening to this. That's really why I wanted to have Brian here. Brian, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. The first thing that I do when I go to a new client, like a client who's either offline or online, I try to get a sense of what lists they own. Like, it's like, what assets do you have? It's the old J. Abraham thing. How do you get everything out of all you got? So one of the things you got, if you got a list, if you're not starting from scratch, and then I really try to dig deep quickly, what's on that list? Who's bought? Who almost bought? who bought and returned, who expired, like who bought and like ran, like was a subscription and ran out. By the way, your best list is always your expire list. That's a rule of thumb in direct marketing, because you
Say
can
that
always
again.
break.
People are going to miss that one, and I want to make sure you hammer that hard.
I'm going to hammer that hard, because the thing is, people think if someone expires from their product that they're no longer of use to them. Actually, if they paid you and they didn't cancel and they stayed with you for some period of time and then canceled, that's your best list, because usually people expire or cancel or get out of something because it's either time or money. It's either too expensive, or the thing was piling up, whether it was emails or magazines or newsletters, and it like was overwhelming. And they said, I don't even get to that, I cancel. But when you go back to them, you better talk to them as if they're family, not as if they're a new prospect.
So cool.
We want you back, right? We want you back. We did a direct mail campaign once to our subscribers to our big newsletter, and all we did was put "We want you back" on the front of the envelope. And the open rates went up on the envelope, and our response rates went up 20 or 30%, because we treated them as if, look, we missed you, as opposed to, screw you, you canceled on me, I'm never going to mail to you. Now, I think a lot of people listening to this get that expires would be their best list, but I'm glad you made me hammer it home in case there's somebody that didn't. But I guess my point there was that the first thing I do with a client is, who's on your list? How are you communicating with them? And make sure that we don't have a one-size-fits-all messaging, because every group. What about the VIPs? What about the people at the top of your list? The people. I've used this example before, but it's really a good one. So I went to somebody who had about a 10,000 name email list, and she was selling a lot of different products to them. I think she had 17 different products. I won't go into the details because I don't want to give away who it is. So 17 different products, all digital. And so I said, you have a breakout of like your buyers, like the people who bought your 17 products. And so she showed me like a grid, and of the 10,000 people on her list, 8,000 people bought one product. And then of the other 2,000, half of them bought 2 or more. And then another group bought 3, another group bought 6 or more. And she had them all broken out, which was great. So then she showed me on the end of the spreadsheet, there was one person on her list that bought all 17 products. So my response to that, and I hope people get this when I say it, it was kind of said jokingly, but I don't mean it as a joke. I said, so that person who bought the 17 products, when was the last time you invited them to dinner? So she looked at me like with a funny look, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't invite people to my house for my list. I said, well, I was being sort of like, a wise ass in a way. But what I was really trying to get to there is that the person who bought 17 products from you, you would want to actually get them on the phone and talk to them and like, what made you buy 17 products? Why would you be such a fan of mine? What were the things you liked best of each of the 17? You've got a focus group of one that could be really, really powerful. But beyond that, the people that bought 6+ products, they should get a certain kind of VIP mailing of sorts. That's where direct mail could be used on the back end of a digital business. Because what I would do with like my 6-time buyers who've spent, a few $1,000s with me, why wouldn't I want to send them a nice lumpy package with a book or a gift that's related to the products that they bought, with a thank you note? Maybe you want to do it as a referral program. Who else do you know that would like my products? And you give them that gift. I mean, yeah, it's an ethical bribe of sorts, but you know what? It's a free gift. And the thing is, if you take the actual lifetime value of those customers who bought 6+ products, thinking about how much that piece of mail might cost you, which might be a few dollars, even if it costs you $10 to FedEx it, the idea that you're treating your best customers at that level, you start getting the idea of list segmentation. And I always say, treating a database of 9 million is the same as treating a database of 900 or 9. It's sort of like, you know what I mean? It's like and so I want to get it down. Because look, I've gone that route. I went from a 9 million name database to a database of 6,000. And of those 6,000 on my list, I've done emails to 75 people to sell them a higher ticket mastermind group. I didn't go out to all 6,000 to sell them a $20,000 mastermind. That's crazy.
Oh, I just hope people understand this.
Hopefully these examples made sense.
Oh, no, they make complete sense. And this is one of the things it's because of Russell's experience with you and with others at GKIC, and really coming from that whole DRM space, the direct response marketing space, that we've created Actionetics inside of our platform because of the importance of that segmentation. In fact, I'm going to include at the bottom of this podcast a link to the Actionetics video, because it kind of goes through what you were talking about. Russell does at the end of our video on there, and basically says, you know what, if you were a retailer and someone came in basically and they were a college kid and they were just looking for girls, you would treat them probably a lot different than if someone came in and you knew they made $150,000 and they were driving a Porsche and they were, right. They've segmented themselves. And by the way, they respond to you and you respond to them. That's what Actionetics, our software, is all about. We actually, I just love this conversation we're having, Brian, because we're in the process right now.
This is great. And I knew you guys were on it, so that's really cool.
Well, because we have, in fact, probably a week after this airs, we will be on Marcus Lemona's show, The Profit. And so we are completely redesigning our entire front end to be a segmentation front end. And what I mean by that is, when you come to ClickFunnels' homepage now, it's going to be a survey. So what type of business are you? Do you like this? Do you like that? And so in a matter of 3 or 4 questions, it's actually going to come down to the end and it'll say, well, this is the funnel that works best for you. And you click here and you can get it for free. Because of what you just said, you have to segment those people. I look at the people who have joined our certified consultant program, those who have joined Russell's Inner Circle. Yeah, they've escalated up the sales ladder and everything else, but they are treated differently. They should be treated differently.
Absolutely.
And you pay for that opportunity to get closer to someone. You know, I remember Dan Kenny, as far as you're talking about the guru on the mountain type of philosophy. And to me, that's really important as you're taking a look at your list, and whether you're talking about, have you invited that person to dinner? Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, because you're going, you know what? If they spent that kind of time and money with me, I probably should, or at least I'm communicating with them differently because of what they've done with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had something happen yesterday. So, my assistant comes over once a day. I'm old-fashioned. I have to have an assistant who can come over because he has to go to the post office for me. Because I mail a lot of physical products to people. So I have a mastermind group. I have 2 mastermind groups, but my higher-end group has, I don't know, I think there are like 23 companies, some with partners. So maybe there's like 30 to 35 people that come to the 2-day meetings. And so I have a meeting in September, and I give away a lot of stuff there, some books that I want them to have. Like I have Perry Marshall and Jay Abraham coming to my next meeting, so I'm going to give away one of Jay's books and one of Perry's books and all that. So someone else is speaking at this mastermind, and I said, I have one of her books that I could either give away, but I think if people read it in advance, or at least looked at it in advance, they'd be better prepared for her presentation. So it's a little thing, but it gave me an opportunity for people who are paying me a lot of money to be in my group. I'm going to see them in a month, but I made my assistant carry 40 packages to the post office yesterday, each with an individual note from me. This sounds kind of silly to even talk about because to me it comes natural, but people would say, why would you waste your time doing that? Well, it was important to me. So I have a personalized note to every single person in my mastermind. Can't wait to see you in September. Here's so-and-so's book she'll be presenting. And then I'd say something else about something I know about them, or maybe they had done office hours with me and we were working on a project together. How's the project going? Boom. So the idea that now they always get email from me. They're on monthly calls with me. They're going to see me at a live event. And now they're getting this package that's lumpy with a book in it. And so why wouldn't I want to treat my best customers like royalty? I don't get. If anybody wants to talk me out of that, you're going to lose the argument with me. That was just a little example, but it just happened yesterday and it stuck in my mind.
No, it's real. In fact, we've integrated with a couple of different companies. Zen Direct is one of them. Who the whole reason we did that is we want to. Yeah, people have to understand it's less expensive to acquire someone online. But man, if you can take them offline that much faster and get real physical, tangible things in their pockets and that they're consuming, whether it's food, whether it's a book, whether it's something like that, man, they are like yours. And
let me go the other way. So I have this thing called O to O to O. So O to O to O means online to offline to online, or it could be offline to online to offline, like you just said. But a couple of things on that. I think that, and again, this is where I'm a kid in a candy store. I think. Although I'm working with a few clients right now where I have one in particular that is super exciting where they have a huge success online, launches digital info product, right? They've done 8-figure launches online, and they want to try direct mail. So they could take their digital product, we create physical product, we then create a direct mail campaign, goes to a completely different audience than what they did with their affiliates and online. There might be a little overlap, but not a lot. We call the product something different. We add different physical premiums, physical product premiums. So the whole offer looks different, even though it's a lot of the same content. We get new buyers from a new medium called direct mail, this new thing called direct mail. We get all these buyers come in. We only want to get them to respond in direct mail right away. Then once we have the buyer paid in direct mail, now we start offering them some digital content that they can access immediately, another special report, another something that's available that we didn't give them in the direct mail. Now they go online to get that. The ones who don't, the ones who are 80 years old, this is an older demographic, so the ones who are 80 years old, who don't turn on their computer, they're not our audience anyway. We just got new customers that we never would have gotten online, right? But most people are online. So then what you do is you take that person, you get them online. Now you see if you can start promoting them online much less expensively. Here's the direct mail guy telling you how to get out of direct mail, right? Because why do you want to keep doing direct mail if you don't have to? But now you start delivering a bunch of digital content that they don't have. You get them into a whole nother online funnel, but that doesn't mean you give up on the offline stuff. Because then when they become a high ticket buyer, you go right back to what you said, where you give them something of real, of physical product value. In fact, I have a blog going out this week. I just finished it. And it's all about how I developed the book business at Boardroom by taking books at Barnes & Noble, taking them off the shelf and creating a direct mail version of them. And when I talked about it at the end of this blog, I did talk about going to online conferences, internet marketing conferences, where people were talking about the deep, dark secret of internet marketing is physical product. Like they had discovered the fact that if you send physical product on the back end, that you might get a customer for a longer period of time. Like, duh, So to me, I love hearing that, because I think that, not only is this O to O to O thing just an obsession of mine, because ultimately I'd rather have them online. I'd much rather be selling them and cross-selling them, upselling them online. But here's the other piece. If they came in originally offline from a direct mail piece, I will guarantee you that that customer will have a much higher lifetime value than a customer that started online. And the reason is the engagement factor initially for an offline promotion is very different when you're in a tactile environment of people reading a direct mail letter or reading a brochure or reading a catalog. If they buy from that and then they go online later on, I know people that have tracked those customers.
Oh, yeah.
Way higher lifetime value. They stay much longer. And the people who started online, they're fine. I mean, you have to calculate their lifetime value versus the other. And I guarantee you the ones who originated offline have a higher lifetime value. So the idea of moving in and out is incredible. And you also said something else, which I don't want anybody to lose sight of. You said it, so I'm going to repeat it. And I said it in my blog post last week. I said, it's a direct marketing rule of thumb. The cost of acquiring a new customer is way higher than keeping an existing one.
Yeah.
And we all know that. We all talk about it. But what we're talking about here is you can't just keep an existing customer happy by doing nothing. You need to be proactive. You need to be doing stuff with them. So, all of these rules of thumb apply to everything that's happening today. And I'm just excited because I think if I can get a couple of really cool case histories of this O to O to O, I'm excited about it. But I do have a couple of people that are really interested, as I said, in trying this new medium called direct mail and integrating it with their online business.
I think that's fantastic. I can tell you, for us, I look at ClickFunnels, and we really built this SaaS company offline. And people go, what are you talking about? Even it's a SaaS company. I'm like, it is, but you have to understand, our greatest promotions came from a lot of the direct mail that we sent out to our Dream 100 lists. And those were, expensive products. a lot of it was tied to Russell's promotion, giving away his Ferrari last year, which Jeff Walker won.
I know he did. I actually sat in it.
But it was really cool for us we put together these, and again, people have seen it before. It's the video card, you open up. But it goes back to what you were saying, where every single one of those video cards, when it opened up, it was a personal message from Russell to literally his top 150 people. As far as, would you promote my free book that I'm giving away?
Yeah, the video card is great. He did a great job with that. I remember hearing about it and seeing it. I think maybe on Facebook someone was showing it or something. You know what? This is a story I've told before, but I'll tell it. It's really funny. I was at a client and we're talking, and this is a client that had probably under 100 customers that had paid, that were high ticket customers. But a high ticket customer for this company was $25,000 to $75,000. Okay, so that's high ticket, right? So they have under 100 of them. It wasn't they didn't have a big business yet, and so we were talking about my old question. Who's on your list? What do you have? What do you own? Well, I got all these prospects, and we're doing dialing for dollars for this list and that list. But I have 80 people who've spent between $25,000 and $75,000. I go, let's focus there for a few minutes. So then I went around the room and I picked the woman in the room that was the youngest. She was probably about in her early 20s. And I said to her, and I was kind of being a wise ass, but I said, do you know what a mailbox is? And she looked at me and she said, of course I did. I said, it's the thing with the post on the end of your driveway or maybe in your lobby. She goes, I know where my mailbox is. I go, do you check your mail once a week, once every 2 weeks? She goes, no, I check it every day. And then I said, oh, you check it every day. And just out of curiosity, do you remember when you were younger? I mean, do you think, and now over the last bunch of years, is that mailbox emptier or fuller than it was? Oh yeah, it's a lot emptier than it used to be. There's very few things. I said, I think, are you less popular than you used to be? You seem like a nice young lady. I would think that you'd be much more popular. I bet your inbox is packed. She goes, yeah, my inbox doesn't stop. So I said, well, just so you know, the least crowded inbox is the one that I grew up with, and it's the one that's on the end of your driveway. And not only is it the least crowded, but let me ask you another question. You go out to that mailbox, and there are 4 things in it. And 2 are bills, 1's a brochure, and the 4th thing is a Jiffy bag that's all lumpy, and it's got something in it that, you feel it, you can feel like it's tactile, something is in there that's of substance. And the outer envelope is handwritten, the address is handwritten, and the return address, even if you don't recognize it, it looks like it's from a real person. And I said, what would you open first? And would you wait? And she goes, and I said, would you open any of those before you open your email when you go back inside, or the email that's on your phone, since I'm sure you took your phone when you walked out to your mailbox? And she says to me, oh, I'm opening that package. I mean, you know where I'm going here. So
Absolutely.
I'm opening that package even before I check anything else, whether it's that other mail or my email. So it's somewhat anecdotal, and I only tell the story for some effect that says, people will respond to what, how you send it, how you sell is how they respond is how you sell. And yes, there are certain audiences that, direct mail in a traditional sense is never going to work. I'm not going to send my old kind of direct mail from boardroom, long sales letters, brochures. I'm not going to send that to a 25-year-old. It's just not going to work.
Right.
That works for 65-year-olds, and I know it works well to 65-year-olds, and that's great. But what I just told you had nothing to do with sending millions of direct mail letters. It had more to do with a different brand of direct mail.
I love that.
Again, yeah. So I think that, and it sounds like I'm preaching to the converted because, Russell and you understand this. But if anybody who's listening to this hasn't heard it from you guys, I want them to hear it from me as well.
I love it, especially because it's kind of a joke here in the office. Again, I just moved up here, so I've been used to being in my own office for a long time, so I'm not used to the office dynamics. But it's been kind of fun being here in Boise now and working in Russell's office and with all the team and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's kind of it's a standing joke here. I was talking with Steven, who does a lot of the funnels for Russell. And he goes, oh man, I tell you, I got in so much trouble the very first time I started working with Russell. I said, what happened? He goes, I didn't understand how important it was for Russell to open up his own mail. I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, not his mail. It's not the mail that's matter, it's the packages. And it's always been a joke of Russell's and mine where he could literally be on a webinar, and if FedEx comes in with a box, the whole webinar is going to stop because he wants to see what's in the box.
Exactly.
And I think it's such an important thing for people to have to understand. As you mentioned, this 20-year-old girl, you go and check in the mailbox. That is the most awesome truth. I hope people are understanding this. And again, it's an honor for me to have you on because I think you come from such a vast array of experience going online and offline and back and forth. But for me, I think the main thing I hope people understand is you've got a tool that allows you to acquire customers, at least get their names and information pretty inexpensively. You need to start investing right now in moving them up your sales ladder and everything else by putting together lumpy mail, by using ZenDirect, by using ClickFunnels, by finding different sources and means and things that you can actually use to implement everything Brian's been talking about. This is a guy who's literally, he's bought, I think, what last time you were talking, like 80 million, probably $100 million worth of media. I mean, this is a guy.
Oh, no, over $1 billion worth of
over $1 billion worth of media. This is a guy who's had to put money out of his pocket, money out of his clients'
But people are
pockets.
laughing because they're saying, "Oh, and he's talking about sending books, to his friend." It's funny though. That's why I really am emphasizing that piece of it because I'm not bragging. I don't want to. The fact that I mailed over 1 billion pieces of direct mail in my career is not a point of bragging. It's that what that taught me is that there's all kinds of mailings. There's mass mailings, there's intermediate, and then there's these personalized, and they're all very different. I really believe that, that if people understand, I did a blog post. It was not that long ago. It was called Christmas Cards in July. And it was all about, how you, I even had this thing in the blog post, and I've done it today already, where I'll walk around my office and I'll see something lying around that I know that I'll either going to throw out or it's taking up space. And it's the beauty of the re-gift, right? Yeah. But it reminded me of somebody. And so what I would do is I would take it, I wouldn't do this like with a tuna sandwich, but, but I do it with books all the time. I do it with like tchotchkes, things that are lying around. I did it the other day. I had someone sent me, I'm an umpire, baseball umpire is my hobby. And someone sent me a shirt that was like their local association for referees, right? And so I'm not a ref, and I wouldn't wear the shirt because ref and umpire are different. It was more about, soccer referees in this particular case. But I know a guy who I umpire baseball with who also referees basketball. So what did I do? I took the shirt, it hadn't been worn yet, so it was clean. I put a note on it. This has nothing to do with business per se, but dear Frank, got this shirt, thinking of you. I wish I could be as good a ref as you. I have to just be as good an umpire as you. And so it was just a way to connect with the world. It was a way to, and again, this guy's not even a business guy, but I do this all the time with people in business, people in my mastermind groups, people who spend money with me, people who don't spend money with me. It doesn't matter. And so that's a good example. And I did it today with something else. I found that there was a CD lying around that I knew I wasn't going to do anything with. And it reminded me of somebody, a friend of mine, and in business. And I put a personal note on it, put it into a lumpy mail. And I said, I was just thinking of you today. I got this, I know it feels like a re-gift, but it doesn't matter because it's the note that counts because I'm thinking about it.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, I could have you on for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I know you got a ton of stuff going on, and I really want to spend some time briefly here before we wrap things up. And that is, I want to talk about, again, since we're kind of on the book thing, you've put together a pretty amazing book that you got coming out here pretty quick that people need to understand who you're talking about in that book. So if you don't mind, take a few minutes and kind of tell people what's in this book.
Yeah, I'll do it quickly. I don't like the title of the book, but the title is called the Advertising. I don't like the title.
I interrupted you right there because I saw that title and I'm like, that doesn't sound like something Brian would put together.
No, it's with an outside publisher, and I came into the project after that was settled. So Craig Simpson, who wrote the Direct Mail Solution, did a second book with Entrepreneur Press called The Advertising Solution, and he was pretty far down the road with it and said, Brian, I really want you to come in on the project with me. So I edited the entire book. And what the book is, it's called The Advertising Solution because it does talk about 6 men who were more associated with advertising than marketing. However, the fact is that these guys were the precursors of all direct marketing, in my opinion. And the 6 are David Ogilvy, John Caples, Robert Collier, Claude Hopkins, Gary Halbert, and Gene Schwartz. And
those are the crazy lists.
Yeah, they're crazy. These are like legends in. These are like a lot of them were mad. These are like Mad Men if you ever watched the show. But the interesting thing about these 6, and more like Halbert and Schwartz were a little more recent than the other 4, but the fact is that all 6 of these guys, while Ogilvy was known as this general advertising guy, Ogilvy and Mather, he had the first direct response agency. If you watch videos of David Ogilvy speak, he's all about how do you get a return on investment on your advertising. The advertising that gets the response is the one that's going to be the winner at the end of the day. So he was basically a direct marketer trapped in a general advertiser's body. And so they're all like that. I mean, so that was Ogilvy, all about the big idea. John Caples, who wrote the classic ad, they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play, and everybody's ripped off that headline with their own. But that was John Caples, who lived between the years of 1900 and 1990. Another guy, Claude Hopkins, wrote the most important book, one of the most important books ever written, called Scientific Advertising. But there was no science when he wrote the book in 1923. But the guy understood that you needed metrics to track what you did in your advertising. So again, a guy who gets sort of clumped in as an advertising guy is actually a direct marketing guy, in my opinion. And Scientific Advertising is a must-read for anybody, anywhere. The 4th guy, Robert Collier, wrote a book called the Robert Collier Sales Letter Book, and Robert Collier Letter Book. It's called Robert Collier Letter Book. The book's a snooze. However, it basically teaches you how to write sales letters. So what a great thing Craig and I did. So you don't have to read that book. You read our book. And we gave you like all the greatest hits of Robert Collier, in addition to the greatest hits of David Ogilvy, Hopkins. Caples, by the way, wrote a book called Tested Advertising Methods. And John Caples was, the king of testing. So we got Ogilvy, we got Caples, we got Hopkins, we got Collier. Gary Halbert was probably the godfather of copywriting.
Yeah.
He, I'm not saying he invented headlines, but, the man was, died young and he wasn't as old as the other guys. But, there are people in our industry, in the online world today, that are all students of Gary Halbert. And then the 6th great is Gene Schwartz, who was actually a personal mentor of mine. And Gene Schwartz was the man, also a copywriter, wrote the most important book ever written on copy and creative called Breakthrough Advertising, which I own the rights to. I hope I'll have the rights for a long time to come. Gene was a mentor of mine. Gene basically understood lists, even though he was a copywriter, which I wrote blogs about that. He, was a voracious reader. The things you can learn about watching how Gene Schwartz ran his life, both as a copywriter and a marketer, he also marketed health books, is incredible. So anyway, the book is about these 6 legends. It's about how all of their principles apply to everything we're doing online today, that these are just eternal truths. I think I say in my preface to the book, it's like, I think I've proven that eternal truths are just that, they're eternal. So if anybody, when this podcast is live, I know the book will be out. And what the beauty of it is that I'm not making a lot of money on the book, but what I really want to give away is an incredible amount of information about these guys, these 6 legends, as a back end. You'll be proud of me. There's a funnel. But there's a back end giveaway bonus. So basically, if you go to the website, www.thelegendsbook.com, thelegendsbook.com, you go there, you can go right to Amazon from the site. It'll keep the window open. You go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or I think there's a third button. You buy the book, you send us the receipt, you come back to the site, you send us the receipt to an email address, and you're going to then download this incredible swipe file, and I'm a big fan of swipe files, which doesn't allow you to steal. It allows you to steal smart.
Which I was really hoping we were going to have time to talk about, but I'm going to have to get you back on later. We'll go through that.
I'll do another one with you. But so the swipe files are basically all the stuff that these 6 legends wrote, and we're putting together a custom file of their greatest ads, their greatest packages, their greatest letters, all in one swipe file. We're also in that bonus package. There's going to be videos of Gary Halbert, Gene Schwartz, and David Ogilvy for people to watch unlimited access to those videos. And then we also are going to give you the illustrated and annotated version of Scientific Advertising, which is a book that Bob Bly put together. And it's just a wonderful way to go through that classic book with all kinds of annotated stuff from great copywriters. So all of that, plus there's some other bonuses in there. So thelegendsbook.com, buy the book at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. It's not that expensive. And then you'll get all those bonuses when you opt in back on the page. And then if anybody wants a lot of free content from me, I have a site, briankurtz.me, www.briankurtz, briankurtz.me. And on that site, I have a lot of free content, interviews, other podcasts, some stuff we talked about today for sure. I'm on reruns a lot of time. And then there's, and then you can opt into my list, and I do blog almost every week, video and written. And if there are any blogs that we want to give links to, we could do that too. But you can go to my blog page and get all that. So I just love the privilege of being in front of an audience like this is fantastic for me.
Oh, Brian, it's, again, as I mentioned before, it truly is an honor. I've seen your work for years, and I'm always fascinated by those people who actually are willing to put money out of their own pocket to build a list.
Right.
And that's something that most people have no idea about. So I admire that.
You wouldn't have been in favor of postage for email, right?
No. Well, Brian, thanks a million, bud. We appreciate it. Anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
No, I appreciate it. I know we took a little more time than you usually do, but thank you for the extra time. And again, I just want to say that, I do a lot of podcasts, and, when Brad said that there might be an opportunity to be on yours and Russell's, I was like, wow, that would be pretty cool, because, I've been watching you guys too, believe me, and a lot of people do. And, when people talk about who the top of the food chain is right now in online marketing, your name always comes up, your company always comes up. And so that's a real tribute to you guys. So again, I know we're making this into a mutual admiration. People are ready to throw up, I think. But I just want to make sure folks understand that even though, I'm a old school direct marketer, the mad love I have for people like Russell and Jeff Walker and Ryan Dice, Ryan Levesque. Stu McLaren. I just follow these guys. I'd follow them off a cliff at this point. And being able to be in rooms with them and learn from them is a privilege. So I encourage everybody, this is coming from the 58-year-old guy, never stop learning. I teach a lot now too, and I have groups where I just really teach. But, I learn so much by teaching. I know it sounds like a cliche, but never stop learning, because once you stop learning, you might as well be dead.
Yeah. Great words to end on. Greatly appreciate it, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.